Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of Compliance Scorecard. We're here with our good friend Peter Bellini from ConnectSecure. We're really excited about a new joint venture that we've been kind of working diligently over the last couple of weeks, couple of months. But before I get into that, Peter, why don't you just take a second, say hello, tell us a little bit about ConnectSecure and who, what, where, when, how, why.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Tim. So happy to be here. Happy for this partnership. I know it's been a few months in the works now, but a little bit about ConnectSecure. So ConnectSecure, or as some of you all knew it as formerly Cyber CNS, is a vulnerability management tool. We do vulnerability management. We do compliance scanning. We do personal information scanning, external scanning, attack surface scanning. And we do application patching as well. So we try to bring a lot of those functionalities into one simple tool to use. So we find stuff. And then, of course, there's compliance risk or compliance scorecard now, who, this partnership I'm excited for, because once we find it, we got to govern it. And if y'all have seen NIST 2.0, I think that plays very well into what Compliance Scorecard does, and that's why I'm excited about this integration and partnership.
Yeah, Peter, thanks for that. And for those of you that obviously have been looking and watching LinkedIn for the last couple of days, I swear I see at least a dozen or 10 dozen posts about the new NIST 2.0 framework. It's been several years since it's been updated. We're really excited because they've now introduced this whole governed domain, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But let me just take a second, say hello to everybody. Hi, I'm Tim Golden, founder of Compliance, now rebranded Compliance Scorecard. And we help MSPs operationalize their compliance work within their customer and within themselves. We make it easy, we make it accessible, and we help you and your customers follow a framework or follow a roadmap to better building defensibility in you and in your customers. And this integration with ConnectSecure is really going to start to help you and your clients as an MSP start to deal with things like cyber liability insurance, things like CIS, and so on and so forth. And so I'm Tim Golden, founder of Compliance Scorecard, and we're really excited to talk about this joint adventure, right? And so, Peter, let's just first kind of level set about the relationship between ConnectSecure and Compliance Scorecard. There was a couple articles that came out and said partnership. I feel like partnership feels too legalese of a word. Right. There's been a couple of places where the word partnership, and I want to make sure that we're like, it's way more than a legal, it's not a legal partnership per se. So I just want to make sure we level set that part of the conversation. But it's more of a, would you say like a relationship? Like, what do you think about our joint solution together and, us working together?
I would say we are we're an integrated set of tools, right, to identify and then govern assets. I'd say we're certainly a very closely working integration, right? We both are under the, Bellini Capital umbrella. We are, always, integrate to everything, best of breed solutions in the market. So, you can plug and play whatever you want. ConnectSecure, we, have an open API. So really, we're always open to integrating to whoever. And I would say our partnership it began about a year ago at Right of Boom 2023, where I met Tim and we just sort of started talking and we kept talking. And then, eventually we came around to let's build out this integration together, right? We do a great job with the vulnerability management, the risk assessments, asset discovery. The compliance piece is kind of part of that suite. And while we do some light compliance scanning, it's the policies and procedures and the more manual labor, if you will, that we as a platform were lacking. And I think a strong integration with a tool that does exactly that is going to be very powerful for both of us combined.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, for those that know me, relational kind of person, right? And so, as we build out our integrations and our ecosystem here at Compliance Scorecard, you know, partnering and working together with ConnectSecure, like I don't want to say it's a marriage made it, like it is, we complement each other's products so well, right? I certainly didn't want to build a scanner, right? Because, not kind of my wheelhouse, right? We're on the govern side, we're on the process side, right? And so having that scanner from Connect Secure to be able to identify stuff, to be able to work through stuff, for us, it's finding the right partners and building those relationships with innovators like Peter and Shri at Connect Secure, and developing those deep, lasting relationships, which ultimately helps the MSP, ultimately helping the MSP's customer, so that, what's the phrase, rising tides and ships, so that we can all work together. It is a giant ecosystem of vendors, MSPs, and SMBs constantly under attack. And so working together with strategic relationships like Connect Secure, or any of the other 25 or so that we are working on in these partnerships and these relationships, are very important to us here at Compliance Scorecard. We're excited today to talk about a new piece of us kind of rolling this piece out, this whole asset stuff. But before we get into that, maybe Peter, you can talk a little bit about the critical role of vulnerability in
I've been talking about your guys' stuff too.
And there goes Adam.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam.
So if y'all didn't know, we at ConnectSecure, we share our office with CyberFox. So we always like to chum up with our CyberFox friends. But I guess back to the topic here. Why vulnerability management is so important. I think just like how NIST 2.0 came out, there's the only thing that has more posts about that is the Screen Connect vulnerability. There, if you go on Shodan, you can see there's thousands of unpatched servers out there, and this has a CVSS score of 10, which means it can absolutely, it's an absolutely devastating vulnerability. And really, what kind of spun up cyber CNS at the time was, the Kaseya VSA attack in 2021. So back then, right, Shiva and Shrikant, the co-founders of cyber CNS, they really saw there was a gap in the market for a truly modern vulnerability management solution for the MSP business model, and that's when they started to build out cyber CNS. I got involved, in 2022 to help kind of build out the support, sales, education, consulting piece of the pie. And that's when we rebranded to ConnectSecure. So, the VSA attack in 2021, the Screen Connect attack in 2024, these attacks keep happening, or these vulnerabilities keep happening. It's important to continuously scan your infrastructure. Find out what's on the infrastructure as far as assets and software inventory, and then B, what is vulnerable. So I think that's incredibly important. We actually just came out with a new dashboard in ConnectSecure this week that shows specifically, how many companies, you as the MSP looking at how many companies have Screen Connect installed on that environment, vulnerable versions of Screen Connect, and how many assets would be affected. So it's kind of a quick snapshot for the MSPs using our tool to identify, is there Screen Connect on these environments that is vulnerable to attack? Which kind of brings me into, everybody loves to talk about 0-day vulnerabilities, right? That's the big sexy word, right? Stuxnet, allegedly the US and Israelis developed a 0-day vulnerability to exploit the Iranian nuclear plant, right? That's kind of like the spy, cloak and dagger type stuff. But in reality, what most of these attacks use as the vector is known vulnerabilities, or end day vulnerabilities, what some people call them. So it's important to note that, right, known vulnerabilities, there's patches out there, right? It's already documented. The software developers already put a patch out there, just like ConnectWise, right? They jumped the gun there. They really got out there quickly with a patch to fix the tool. And it's important to be scanning for these vulnerable pieces of equipment on the environment and then patching them, which is exactly what ConnectSecure does, right? We have a patching engine built into the tool so that when we scan and we identify a vulnerability, we can patch it for you or raise a ticket in your PSA to do that. And then, of course, with that, the remediation timeline, there's policies and procedures that you need to have, agreements upon with the end business user, Mr. Business User. It's, hey, we've identified this is your revenue generating server. We need to have an SLA of, less than 2 days if we find a vulnerable piece of software on there, which is, part of what, Compliance Scorecard can bring to the table, right? Is, for compliance and for policies and procedures, making sure that's documented.
So to break it down, right? We're all MSPs, the audience here listening, we have that understanding, and we know in a sense what it means to have a machine be vulnerable, right? And having that conversation with our customer as an MSP, isn't a terribly hard conversation, but it is an important conversation, especially as it relates to cyber liability insurance, right? And so, we talk frameworks, we talk roadmaps, we talk compliance, we talk all these things, right? These big scary terms. Oh my gosh, compliance. And at the end of the day, right, you need to figure out what you have, and you need to figure out, is it vulnerable? Right? We know that the human part is vulnerable, but the software and the technology side is vulnerable. I mean, how many times a week do we see a Chrome or a Firefox update? Right? How many times a month do we see, what is it, every Tuesday, Microsoft comes out with Patch Tuesday, right? And so, having a tool like ConnectSecure not only discover the devices within the infrastructure, but actually taking the time to look at that device and determining the pieces of software and if they're vulnerable, right? Using things like EPSS scores to determine, is it worth my time to fix this one little nuance on one little device on a machine that's barely connected to the internet? Or is it time to patch Screen Connect because I just found 65,000 of them, right? And so having this ability to be able to scan at the endpoint to determine, is that machine vulnerable, right? So when the humans do something bad by mistake or on purpose or whatever, we've tried to mitigate that in the beginning, right? By patching the OS, by patching the software that's on there, by discovering those vulnerabilities, right? And as we progress, I'm going to back away from the compliance stuff for a second, right? Because cyber liability insurance, this is one of the key categories that cyber insurance is looking at, is vulnerability, right? Maybe Peter, you can talk a little bit about that around, what you've experienced in the insurance space, from the vulnerability perspective.
Sure. So from, an insurance perspective, right, it's you have to do an annual risk assessment, right? That's absolutely, a requirement. So a lot of folks will use our tool, right, to do the annual risk assessments, to show that to the insurance carrier. Additionally, right, with the more, I guess, cybersecurity focused ones, right, they want to see that, there's continuous vulnerability scanning involved there. They want to see that policies and procedures are in place so that, the insurance carrier, are limiting their liabilities.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Our friends at Fifth Wall Solutions, obviously you hear us talk about them all the time, and it's not just Fifth Wall, but insurance loosely have 5 or 6 things that are, every policy, every procedure. I hate to use the word every, it feels too much like an absolute. Um, they are asking for key pieces of information. Do you have 2FA? Do you have next gen, endpoint protection, antivirus, threat hunting, something? Do you have backups? Do you have vulnerability management, right? So there are these key things that cyber liability insurance firms, most, if not all, are asking about the vulnerability scanning and remediation. Do you find the stuff? And so, utilizing ConnectSecure Scanner, you can answer that question truthfully for your customer, saying we identify them. Now, as Peter pointed out, you probably need a policy, a procedure, and some SLAs on the remediation side, right? You probably should have some documentations saying this is how we identify them. This is our policy around it. This is our procedure for remediation. And, as the insurance industry matures, as they gain that, actuary table and data, I suspect that they're going to start to ask questions of proof, right? There are some questionnaires that when I was at my MSP, I've had to fill out that would say, there is a list, Huntress and alum, blah, blah, blah. And is it actually in active mode versus passive mode, right? And so as that industry matures, sure, a vast majority of them are asking, are you scanning for vulnerabilities? And as it matures, they're probably going to want to start to ask, how are you mitigating them? What are your policies and procedures and your SLAs around dealing with them, right? If we've identified Screen Connect, huge thing going on right now, right? 0 day, Peter, I think you mentioned earlier, right? That's great. We found Screen Connect, but I have no policy, no procedure, no governance, no anything around. Yeah, I found it. Moving on. Wait a minute. As insurance starts to pay out on some of these things, like if they actually dealt with the policies, the procedures, and the documentation, including your client in that conversation to say, a 0 day has been discovered, and it is our policy to mitigate that within X number of hours. Ryan over here dropped in chat, the Shodan, right? So you can go and pull this up and you can see, I think I looked at it the other day, there was still something like 9,000. I don't know, don't quote me on the number, but there's still several thousand instances of it in the wild that can be exploited. And here's the thing, maybe if they had a scanner and they had a policy to back that up that said a critical vulnerability will be dealt with in X number of hours, days, or weeks, it wouldn't get as widespread, or maybe it wouldn't get as widespread. I have to be careful not to talk in absolutes. I do that a lot. But having a scanner, having a policy, procedure, and process in place to be able to deal with that, can then reduce, as Peter says, the attack surface, right? Lowering that attack surface and hardening that shell on the endpoint. So as we kind of move along here, Peter, I want to talk a little bit about, the importance of asset discovery, right? I have my thoughts about asset discovery. Matt Lee always says, my gravestone's going to read, what is an asset? So, talk a little bit about asset discovery from the ConnectSecure side.
I mean, you bring up a good point there. Like, what is an asset at the end of the day? And I think how could we define that as an industry, right? Because if you think about it, right, people are assets, machines are assets, pieces of software are assets. But how, at least we describe an asset at ConnectSecure is, really anything with an IP address, right? So when we do a scan of an environment, we'll pick up workstations, servers, routers, switches, firewalls, IoT devices. I think I saw something where somebody was talking about a theological botnet attack with, hundreds of thousands of smart toothbrushes. all sending requests to a server
I read that.
and doing a denial of service attack. So I mean, I don't think that was real, but like theologically, right? If 100,000 smart toothbrushes did appear on the network and they all, sent a request at the same time and denied service on that server, that's something you'd probably want to know about. So at least identifying what are the, internet connected assets is kind of the wheelhouse of what we do at ConnectSecure. But I think it's important to humans are assets, right? That's an attack surface, which is why security awareness training is so important. So there's, a lot of different ways to go about that, I guess.
Yeah, and CIS, starts to define that. They have a lot of documentation. Head on over to the Center for Internet Security. As an industry, like, first of all, getting us to agree on something is generally challenging, right? And so, you point out a lot of good categories, right? Obviously, hardware or internet connected things can be defined as an hardware asset, right? But you also mentioned humans, right? They are an asset, right? Facilities like buildings, they are an asset, right? I hate to go back to, the 9/11 stuff, right? Those buildings were an asset, right? Software is an asset. Now, SaaS applications are prevalent, right? Those are an asset. Data is an asset. Good old Ryan over there popping up, filling us in, feeding us. So thanks, Ryan. Keep those comments coming. For those that are listening, why don't you drop one or two words in chat and let us know what you would think of an asset category that we might have missed here that Ryan has up on screen. Devices, application, data user. What other kinds of categories would you consider being an asset? And while you're all chiming in on chat, I'm going to talk a little bit about the discovery aspect, right? So CIS 1.1, enterprise asset management, discovering the things. And why do we do that? Why is this such an important thing? Why is it the very first thing that CIS suggests? And Peter, do you know why it is?
Fill me in.
You can't protect what you don't know, right? So, you brought up the toothbrush thing, and it's kind of funny because so I run a couple of different scanning tools at home. Yes, we do use ConnectSecure. I run a couple of others because, we're building out integrations and APIs. And I have a little bit of network segmentation and VLANing going on here because, I want to protect the webcam or the baby cam for our new granddaughter. And I don't want that tied to our other stuff, right? And so I do have network segmentation going on. And so I ran a couple of the different scanning tools across the different segments of my network. And I discovered that I had a lot more devices than I thought I did. And fortunately, I do have network segmentation going on to the best that I can with the devices and the networks and the VLANs appropriately. But then I realized I have 3 smart plugs, 2 smart light bulbs, the thing my daughter installed that I forgot about like a year ago. I have the room. I'm like literally like going through just my home, right? And so with, COVID and this work from home, like you would be vastly surprised at the number of devices connected on people's internal networks. And a lot of us all work from home. Right. And so all of those devices could be vulnerable. Right. Heck, even my thermostat, which I now realized after I scanned it, looked it up and went through it like, ooh, I can't patch that. So then I'm like, rabbit hole on a Saturday morning. Is it vulnerable? What is it? We're Googling, research. But the point that I'm trying to make is that you might be surprised at the number of devices that you find in your home network alone. And I would also imagine that the vast majority of home users are not doing network segmentation. And so that means your Bluetooth toothbrush or your, internet connected toothbrush could take down the rest of your house, right? Hypothetically speaking, based on what you were talking about earlier, right? And so we're getting some really good things here. Robert or Stuffy, our good friend Stuffy over here, Robert Stufflebeam, bringing up software, bringing up mobile devices, real estate. This is an interesting one. Is real estate considered, an asset in relating to cybersecurity? I might break that down a little bit into like facility, maybe. If I think of like I'm a defense contractor and our building needs to be secured and we need to have cameras and locks and all that stuff, so maybe I would think of that more of as a facility. IT guys, yeah, IT people are an asset, that's for sure. So listen, having a tool like ConnectSecure in place to scan not just your device to find the vulnerabilities, but to scan the network as a whole and see what's there and determine like, what do I have? I can't protect what I don't know, right? And that's where all of this starts and where it all comes from and where we're going full circle. Do you have anything else to add about that sort of discovery piece, Peter?
I think you hit on a lot of the points very well. I know one thing, how we like to talk to partners about vulnerability management, which I think is a nice conversation to have with businesses who might not be as tech savvy, right? Talk to them like you would a doctor, right? You go to your general practitioner every year, hopefully twice a year. They'll check your blood, right? They'll see, okay, does he have blood pressure? Has he got the right vitamins? To identify, okay, what could be potentially a problem down the line and to treat that proactively as opposed to waiting for that to fester. And, if you don't take care of your blood pressure, eventually you might have a heart attack and, that's not good. You're going to have surgery. So I guess identifying these problems and then treating them before they become a real problem. And then I putting together, and I think compliance, right? When you look at compliance, right? Compliance is sort of like, okay, I found I got a blood pressure problem. Maybe I should, quit smoking and, eat vegetables. Quit smoking, eat vegetables, exercise every day, right? And compliance is sort of like, I think of compliance as like best practices to maintain a healthy business. And I think, Compliance Scorecard does a very good job of making sure that those guide rails are being followed and signed off on by both the MSP and the business user.
Exactly. And so I just want to quick shout out to all the people putting your comments in about what is an asset. Some really great things. Lisa, hey, is a car parked in our garage an asset? Well, you know what? It could be, especially if that car is Wi-Fi enabled. My wife just got a new car because, whatever, long story. And it came with Wi-Fi. And I was like, what? Hold on a minute. Wait a minute. Yeah, it was, free 30-day Wi-Fi trial, get you to buy the subscription, all that stuff. And I'm like, that's really odd that your car has Wi-Fi. But okay.
We'll pick up cars that are connected to the Wi-Fi. If the car is connected to the Wi-Fi that you're scanning, right? It's on that network. We're going to pick it up.
Yeah. I would be, I know that your tenants are segregated and your staff and your devs don't necessarily have access to all of that data, but what an interesting thought process it would be to like look at the zillions of assets and determine like, I know you can't because confidentiality, you don't have access, but it might be really interesting to be able to look at across the zillion endpoints that you have that got scanned and look at like Joe's car, Bobby's toothbrush, Sally's robot. Like that might be an interesting. I know you can't, but it's not physically not possible. But that might be really interesting data to see. Anyways, I digress. So about halfway through here today. I kind of want to pivot a little bit and talk about this govern thing. right? NIST 2.0, the new govern function that just came out. I could probably talk about this for hours on end, but Peter, when you think of govern, what kind of things come to mind? What kind of govern, what does that mean to me?
Well, I think we have a lot of tools out there in the industry. I mean, I've heard some folks say they got 50 tools in their stack that do all these different things, right? When you think of NIST 1.0, identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. There's a lot of tools that fall into those categories, but what do you do with all of that? You need to have a set of best practices, or you're a military man, Tim, all about standard operating procedures. I think governance is sort of what's the standard operating procedure.
Love it. Yeah, and that is certainly a key component, right? I spend a lot of time trying to help educate MSPs and have been for the last year or so, knowing that the govern function was coming. And I tried to break it down and distill it into sort of 4 unique pieces. And those all come around people and process, right? Those 4 unique pieces of what we try to deal with, right? And I'm just going to self-propel here for a second. When I think of the govern function and we try to educate our MSPs around the govern function, 4 simple parts. First, the alignment piece. Is whatever you're doing aligned to a framework, aligned to a regulation, aligned to actual business practices in place? Is it aligned to something? Are you following a roadmap? From there, we move into the authorization piece, right? Because you, as the MSP, you're facilitating this work, but it's really your customer's stuff. It's really their assets. It's really their documentation. It's their things. And as the facilitator, you really need and should look at your customer authorizing, signing off, agreeing or disagreeing. Yeah, hey, you know what? That is our asset list. We should probably clean it up. But yeah, I recognize Tim's toothbrush and John's car and Sally's robot. Yeah, we should figure out how to get rid of those. But we agree or disagree and authorize the list of things. And then the adoption piece. I mean, what good is having this stuff if end users don't get trained, if end users don't understand it, and if end users don't sign off, acknowledge, and adopt the things that you're putting in place? And lastly, the assessment piece. These things should not become shelfware. I mean, let's face it, SharePoint is where things go to die, right? So at Compliance Scorecard, we bring that 4-part process all around the govern function, involving your customer in that conversation quickly, efficiently, easily. Alignment, authorization, adoption, and assessment. And that's the core of what we started to build out here at Compliance Scorecard. So when I think about that, it isn't really hard to govern things. You just need a process in place and a human to be accountable for it along the way. Does that kind of make sense, Peter, of what we're talking about in the govern piece? Is that resonating? For those of you in the audience, is that resonating with you, or am I totally off the wall here?
I think it certainly resonates with me.
So, we're going to get into a little deeper here on what this today's Power of Two is all about. But I wanted to level set that governing conversation, right? Currently, how do MSPs, or at least Peter, from your perspective, how are MSPs even dealing with asset management? Are they?
That is a good question. I mean, I'd say a lot. It's a 50-50, right? Where we're seeing a lot of people who have basic asset management pieces. They have, they'll have a list of what assets are on each environment. They typically, right, they'll consider it, what do they have an RMM agent on sometimes. But I guess identifying, what is the additional pieces, right? What are the what are the network devices? What are the IoT devices? And then making sure those are also documented, and that there's procedures built around that. We see some people who have that process very well documented. We see some people who don't have it documented at all. So I guess it's sort of I don't know if you will a shifting mindset right now.
I got you totally. And so, thinking through what MSPs are currently doing, if they are even governing assets, chances are it's probably a manual process, right? And chances are they're probably not doing it because it is so manual and because it's time consuming, right? And so, Peter, you have Connect on right there in the building with you, right? I'm sure you talk to them frequently. Like, do you hear some of those struggles around assets and asset management at all, or is it just not even on their radar? And I hate to pick on Connect on, but you sit near an MSP, so
right. Yeah. So if y'all didn't know, we have the family MSP Connect on, which has actually been around since the 80s. My uncle David and dad Arnie started that up way back in the day before they went on and started up ConnectWise. And for them, they've really, I'd say in the last 2 years, really shifted more towards, from a traditional MSP, well, not traditional, but, what was considered
I hear
a
you.
MSP, but they're going more towards in that security direction, and they're starting to get a lot more, I guess, granular with their asset management, where they kind of do a scan right on the front end, and they have that list as configurations in their PSA. As far as putting a set of processes to continuously sign off on, okay, Jimmy and Joey, we hired them and they brought on these two machines each, right? I don't know if they actually have a procedure in place there.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem, right? So, without getting too deep into it, there isn't or hasn't been, at least from what I've been looking across over the last several years, and even more so as I've looked at the tool set specifically for MSPs, they don't do the work because they don't have a way to do that work at scale efficiently. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other vendors and other partners and strategic partners that we're working with. We're not the only one. I feel like we might be the first, but we're not the only one, right? And so taking that manual process of discovering the devices, okay, so yes, we now have a scanner, we can discover the devices, but then what? I get an Excel list, okay. So what we've done here at Compliance Scorecard with our partnership with ConnectSecure is to take that a completely step further. And so I'm going to kind of dive in here a little bit, Peter, and hopefully you'll stump me and ask questions along the way. But let me go ahead and pull this up real quick and kind of share my screen and show you how this all operationally works within the Compliance Scorecard part. And then if time allows, how it works in the ConnectSecure part. So first and foremost, tying in your source of truth. Right? MSPs, I think, Peter, you said, what's it, 20 to 25 on average tools that an MSP has, right? Tying in those multiple sources of truth, right? So even before that, like hardware assets, software assets, data, humans, so on and so forth, like being able to first categorize what is an asset to the best of our ability, and then providing those connectors into that to be able to pull those lists quickly and efficiently with basically one-click setup, right? So, come in, you drop in your API keys. I'm not going to show you that on screen, obviously, because I don't want to show the APIs, but CIS says you should be reviewing assets either weekly or monthly, depending on the level. Let's just level set and say, hey, you probably need to review this maybe once a month, at least once a quarter, and definitely, hopefully more than annually. But that doesn't matter because in our platform, you can set the synchronization frequency. I want it every Monday. I want it on the first of the month, whatever. Set the frequency, and then our platform is going to automatically go out to ConnectSecure. It's going to grab all of that asset information. I'm going to show you this manually, but it's going to go out and grab all that asset information. It's going to pull it down into our platform. It's going to import it and give you and your technician a quick and easy way to review the list. Essentially, red, yellow, green. Is it new? Do we already know about it, so I don't need to deal with it? Is it a duplicate? Is it a suspect duplicate? Our platform is going to pull in those sources of truth. It's going to give your technician, Johnny Janitor, Sally Secretary, it's going to give your team the ability to red, yellow, green and say, these are the assets that we know about that ConnectSecure has discovered from the network scan. Great. Now, here's the fun part. I get to submit this to my customer and have them agree or disagree. And there's a couple of cool things here that can happen, right? Not only are you now involving your customer in the conversation about their assets, not your assets, their assets, but there's a couple of other hidden little benefits here too when you think about billing, right? We had a commit client. There was 150 units that, we were billing them for. Their IT staff were managing the things. We tied in the source of truth. When I did the synchronization and I realized they were only getting 20 assets, we were billing them for 150, and there was only 20 showing up on the asset list, right? I had to be like, oh my gosh, the scanners, something's broke. I went to the source of truth, like, oh, no, there is only 20. I immediately got on the phone with the CEO and I was like, hey, something's up. I'm only seeing 20 devices. And you know what the response was? Oh, yeah, we laid off 80 to 95% of our workforce like 6 months ago. And I'm like, you never told me. And so here I am billing them because I didn't have asset scorecard at the time. I didn't know. They, yes, we were communicating, but, quarterly business review, it had been several months since we've had a conversation because I would hear from them if they needed something or it was our regularly scheduled review. And when I tied in their source of truth into our new asset scorecard and recognized, oh my God, what just happened? And they were like, yeah, we laid everybody off and got rid of all those machines and had them repurposed and nuked and gone. And it was like, so there's even a hidden benefit beyond just the govern function. It's building reconciliation, right? On a monthly basis, I can pull that data list. And if I'm billing per device and those devices I'm unaware of or have been added, deleted, removed, I can quickly know, like, there's a discrepancy here. Something's up. So let me go back real quick and pull this up. So we pull the asset list in automatically, give your staff the ability to quickly review. Then I push it to my customer. My customer receives a notification saying, hey, time to review your asset list. Customer gets to the platform, comes on in. They can quickly see, oh yeah, previous, we already knew about that. We already knew about that. Oh, wait, I want to roll back and see what did my list look like in January versus February versus last week. All that versioning right in your browser, by the way. And the customer can either comment and reject with feedback like, nope, you're missing devices, or yeah, it looks good, or why is Tim's machine in there 12 times? Oh, I forgot to take it out of Active Directory, or I renamed it 12 times. This workflow allows your customer to be part of the conversation and even more so, be accountable for their devices. Customer says, I approve, wash, rinse, repeat. and then it shows up on the asset scorecard within our dashboard. See, asset scorecard done on the dashboard. You can see the document's been there, it's been approved. You can see the versioning over time, and so on and so on and so forth. And so we have literally built out this with a couple of clicks. One, set your API. Two, set your schedule. And then on that schedule, quickly review and involve your customer in the conversation. Wash, rinse, repeat across multiple sources of truth. I don't know if anybody's doing that. You know, maybe for those of you watching on the live stream, does that sound like something that you may have seen or something that would be beneficial to completely automate that governed function for your customers' assets? Any thoughts, Peter?
I mean, I think it's certainly useful. Like you said, you know, in your example, I thought that was very illustrative of the exact use case, right? They laid off a ton of their workforce. You're still billing them a lot of money. Ideally, though, this is going the other way, right? Where they're hiring people and bringing on additional machines. And then you're continuously scanning, getting that information, getting the business owner to buy off, to check off like, oh, yes, we do bring on additional workstations, additional staff this month. You as the MSP could then, use that to prove your worth and expand your services and billing with the business owners. And I think having that conversation where everybody is in sync on what's happening, they're signing off on it so that later on, if there is some kind of argument potentially, right, you have that source of truth, you have their sign off on it, and you could say, look, it's all been documented. Here's your sign off. And everybody is in agreement. There's no more surprises. And I think eliminating surprises and effective communication solves a lot of problems we have, not just in the IT space, but as humans in general.
Yeah, and exactly, right. And so, Lisa, thanks, Lisa, for that. Yeah, again, I don't think I'm the first person to discover this. Maybe not. But at least, with our partnership with ConnectSecure, being able to really help you operationalize your asset governance at scale is the heart of what we're doing. Yeah, there's probably other people out there, and now that they're listening to this, they're probably going to pivot and do it themselves, but that's fine. Competition is good. And so, the hybrid remote workforce, right? How do they work in conjunction in those environments? So Peter, talk a little bit about the probe versus the agent, right?
Sure. So how ConnectSecure works, right, is we have two different types of agents, right? We have the probe, which can scan a network, and then we have the agent, which you can deploy on the individual device. The probe can work through VPN tunnels if somebody, is working remote and going through a VPN, but generally we say, one probe per network. So how that would work in this case, right, is you have the probe on the office environment, like I'm in the office, and then Tim, you're working, from home. So say that we were both working at Connect on the MSP around the corner here. We'd have a probe on this network, and then we'd have a lightweight agent on your device. All that information gets brought back in. The devices are scanned and brought back into the centralized portal in ConnectSecure, which then that information is then synced over to compliance scorecard for the buy-in, right? For that continuously, checking in with the end business owner. So
yeah, the point that I think, Lisa, so let me quickly summarize that. ConnectSecure has two types of pieces of agents or software, one for the individual agent and one for the network at large. So what I've done, because I work in a home environment, right? And I've installed the probe here so that it was going to scan any IP connected device within the subnet, within the VLAN of my segment. Not everybody does that, but yes, the probe from a hybrid or work from home environment is going to be able to scan that network. It's going to be able to determine the toothbrush, the Roomba, the TV, the things that are in any of that IP network. Right. And so fortunately for me, like I'm hopefully as segregated as I can be, things, whatever stuff happens. But in the work from home or hybrid environment, the probe that ConnectSecure has should be able to pick that stuff up. And if you have VPN back into the office, and it runs long enough and all that fun stuff, should be able to pick the stuff up from the office as well if you don't have a probe in that specific network. So to answer your question, they have two versions, one for the endpoint and one for the network, and being able to scan those. And here's what happens. Once all that data gets back into ConnectSecure, we at Compliance Scorecard can pull that down because now we've seen it, they've seen it, and we can govern it. Right. And so from a work from home environment, maybe there's a privacy issue there that we haven't talked about yet around we've discovered Johnny's toothbrush, mom's car, and Sally's robot. Maybe, but they're all vulnerable. Back to the beginning portion of our conversation, which is vulnerability management, right? Discovering those assets and determining if they're vulnerable, and patch management policy procedure around that. And so, yeah, with us, it's a couple of quick clicks to set up the API, set up the schedule, and then on that schedule, work alongside your customer to approve them or not approve them, to say they are right or say they're not right, and build that defensibility in your customer. So just a couple of minutes left here. Peter, kind of wrap up. Where are we going to be next week? What are the fun things happening going on? Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yep. So next week we're going to be over in Las Vegas at Right of Boom. We're going to be actually kind of together in like one of the larger booths. So we're going to have a joint solution booth there where you can go over this integration live. We're going to be, doing a drone giveaway, I believe it is, right? So if you're a partner of both Compliance Scorecard and ConnectSecure, come on by for a chance to win a drone, or, sign up for a demo with each one of the products, and you'll get submitted to win a drone as well. Of course, we're always there if you want to come by, chat with the team. We're, always, we don't go to a lot of events, but when we do go, we like to, enjoy it. Good friends with Andrew Morgan, so I'm excited for a lot of the educational content he's got there. But it'll be a fun week coming up here.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. And I know, Peter, we're also doing a pre-day session, so joint pre-day between ConnectSecure and Compliance Scorecard, where we're going to be talking a little bit about how to do some of this work. We have a great lineup of, obviously, Peter and Ryan and myself and Bob Miller, and Brian. Brian will be joining us too, so we're pretty excited. But what I'm most excited about at Right of Boom is the coffee lounge that we have between our booths, right? Y'all know me, I drink a couple 100 dozen cups an hour. And so we will have a coffee lounge in between us where we'll be, doing demos and, conversing. I'm all, as I said before, it's relational building for me. I'd love for you to come by, shake hands and kiss babies and say hello. We have our new t-shirts, so they're very soft. They literally just came in last night, so we're pretty excited about that. But next week, beginning on the 6th of March for the week, rightofboom.com. If you haven't gotten your ticket, there may still be some left. Hopefully, we will see you there at Right of Boom. If anybody would like a demo and to dig deeper, you can go to compliancescorecard.com, click on join our weekly live demo or book a one-on-one demo. or you can go to ConnectSecure. And what is the offer at ConnectSecure, Peter?
We have a 14-day trial that you can sign up for right on the website. You don't have to actually talk to anybody, but if you'd like to, our team is more than happy to reach out and
okay, David, I'll have to check that reel out. So David here in chat, I'll just pull this up real quick. So David is a joint partner of both ConnectSecure and Compliance Scorecard. David will be at Right of Boom. We're looking forward to shaking your hand and seeing you again in person, David. We're really excited. Obviously, stop by and get your T-shirt, get some coffee. Tell me to shut the hell up because I talk too much. But yeah, we're really excited for next week. Peter, thank you before we sign off, I tend to try to leave these with one key takeaway. Is there one key takeaway from the things that we've talked about today that you would like our MSP audience to hear?
Sure. So as you said, right, you can't protect what you don't know. How I like to think of Compliance Scorecard and ConnectSecure's integration is you can't govern what you don't know. So find it, govern it, document it, get buy-off with the business owners. I think that's probably my key takeaway. Compliance is not a one and done situation, right? It's an ongoing exercise that you need to continuously maintain, compliance between, the end customer and what they need as far as, assigning their business to a type of compliance.
Love it. And so, Peter, you mentioned that you can't govern what you don't know. We're still in that, by the way, as part of our little conversation. So
Nice.
Yeah, thanks. So here at Compliance Scorecard, we want to be your trusted partner in this compliance, in this scary world of regulation. Doesn't have to be scary, right? Hopefully, with us as your partner working alongside you, we want to be able to be that trusted advisor to you as an MSP, whether it's through our peer group where we help teach you this stuff, it's through our platform to help operationalize this stuff. We just want to partner with you, build those relationships, and basically teach the next generation of MSPs to do the work that we've been sledging through as an MSP for years, and hopefully help you, and eventually at the end of the chain, help your customer. Our key takeaway from today is start someplace, do something. I say this all the time. Start with a framework. Even if you don't use any of our platforms that we've mentioned, at least determine what do you have, where is it, and ensure that you involve your client in that conversation, because it's really their stuff. And it's really them that need to be held accountable alongside you. And you can facilitate that work. And by the way, double your revenue in doing it. So we're really excited to see everybody next week at Right of Boom. If you won't be at Right of Boom, some of us will be at CompTIA CCF the following week. I think we'll be home for like 36 hours. I land, sleep, wake up, and leave again. We're going to be a lot of different places over the next couple of months. Tim Golden, founder of Compliance Scorecard, with our brother company, ConnectSecure. We will see you next week at Right of Boom. And I used to have an exit video, but I don't have one anymore. So I'm just going to say, do the like thing down the bottom and the subscribe and the thumbs up. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. We look forward to seeing you. Like, subscribe, follow, share, do the things. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. See ya.